I'm Katie Sartoris, and you're watching Inside Leesburg, recovering from Milton. Even if you're a native Floridian with multiple hurricanes under your belt, you can't deny that Hurricane Milton was a terrifying storm. Despite it hitting our area as a Category 1 hurricane, Milton left quite a bit of destruction in its wake. We're now talking with the officials who helped see us through the storm and put our city back together again. Leesburg Fire Chief Joe Mera joins us now in the studio. Thanks for joining us, Chief.
Thank you for having me.
It's been interesting hearing from other departments about prep. So can you tell us how the Leesburg Fire Department prepared for Hurricane Milton?
Certainly. So we had a twofold approach to preparations for the storm. First off, we have 4 fire stations, and they're our homes to where our firefighters live 24 hours a day. So much like your home or anyone's home, before a storm comes, we should prepare. And for that means is picking up loose debris, make sure our trash cans are picked up and put away. We make sure our weather radios have batteries in them and they're operating correctly. We make sure that all of our equipment is operating, everything's fueled up in case there's a problem with fuel afterwards. We just make sure that everything that we have is operational and ready to go. On the other side of the house, one of my duties is EOC commander. So as that, I have to coordinate the efforts between the city and the county. So we start long before the storm hits with briefings every day, and we're just communicating back and forth, making sure that we're all ready, we all have the same operational picture of what's going to happen.
And what kind of calls did the Leesburg Fire Department get during the storm, and how were you able to respond?
Certainly. So we're probably talking about the high wind portion of the storm, which is when the winds are the highest. And so when the winds get to a certain point, it stops the ambulances from responding. The ambulances are very large, but they don't weigh very much. So they're very easily be affected by the wind. So what we do is during that high wind event, we have had for several years now our plan that we would place our firemen and our paramedics in the PD's rescue vehicle, their MRAP. It's a very large vehicle, it weighs a lot, it's landmine proof basically, and the plan has always been that during that high wind event, when the winds are the highest, calls are most critical, we would respond to in that vehicle because we can respond there safely and actually transport the patient much safer than if they were in an ambulance. And that happened about 5 times in Milton. We responded and transported patients.
Can you tell us a little bit about those responses?
Certainly. So they kind of spanned the gamut of calls. Probably the most intense call that we responded to that night was a call where a tree had fallen, and it had fallen onto a house. It basically crushed the roof of the house and actually pinned a lady in bed. So, and the really amazing thing of that was that the crews used equipment that was not ever really intended to be used for cutting wood and that kind of stuff. We call it the jaws of life, if you will, that's used for vehicle extrication. But because the proximity of the wood to the lady and how she was pinned in, it was far safer and more effective to use our rescue tools versus, say, chainsaws. So with that, they were able to extricate her out of her bed. We loaded her into the police department's MRAP vehicle, and she was transported to the hospital and treated there. That was probably the most high-profile call that we had. But we also had calls of a lady that was going into labor, and another person that had a very significant heart problem. So during that high wind event, lower acuity calls or calls that aren't as severe are triaged and they're held. So let's say, for example, you rolled an ankle during the high wind event. We held that call and just respond to those really, really high acuity calls. So then once the high wind event ended, we then proceeded to respond back to these calls that had backlogged.
Wow, sounds like y'all were busy.
We were very busy.
Yeah. Chief, I heard that the roof was ripped off of the fire station. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, certainly. It's our headquarters station. There's actually a couple of buildings that comprise that station, and one of the buildings where my inspector works out of, it's a flat roof, and during the hurricane, it was peeled back. So we've got some roof damage. Public Works is working on getting us a contract to come out and make the repairs, but as of right now, we have a leaky roof.
Wow. Chief, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your work during the storm.
Thank you.
We said it at the beginning of the show, but it bears repeating. Hurricane Milton knocked out power for 18,892, or 68% of Leesburg electric customers. Restoring power was a grueling days-long task. Here to talk about it now is Leesburg Electric Director Brad Chase. Thanks for joining us, Brad.
My pleasure. Thank you.
First, I want to talk a little bit about mutual aid. Tell me about the entities involved in recovery.
So mutual aid was a big part of our restoration process. Mutual aid for the state of Florida, for the municipalities in the state of Florida, is kind of managed by the Florida Municipal Electric Association. You know, we at Leesburg are normally givers, if you will. We normally send people out to help restore power. In this case, we were a bit of the takers. You know, we got a request early on, probably 2 or 3 days before the storm was projected to hit. We knew we were going to get impacted, and we had our first request for resources go in. Once the storm did hit and we had our initial assessment, we saw pretty early that we needed some additional crews. So we reached out back to FMEA, and we got a group of 8 from Troy, Alabama. We got another group of 8 from Keys Energy in Florida, and a 6th group from Scottsboro, Alabama. The group was here about, Friday was the first crew, and the 2 other crews showed up on Saturday. And we kept them throughout the storm. We released them Wednesday morning once the storm had passed, and once the construction was pretty much brought to bear, and we went ahead and released them on Wednesday morning. Again, using these resources allowed us to really double our resources, if you will, to have enough people to address the outages that we had. I think using or having these utilities come and leave their own homes, their own utilities, and come and help us for those extended periods is kind of a fundamental value of public power, what they provide from a mutual aid perspective. And I think from ourselves and from the mayor and from the commission and certainly our residents, we're very appreciative of the work they were able to do. Absolutely.
How long did full restoration take, and what are some of the obstacles that your department faced?
Okay. Well, Thursday morning came by, and about 5 a.m., like you said, we had 18,982 customers out of power. And so we have a plan, and our plan says we have to go out and get our resources in and begin the assessments, begin looking at what our system, how much damage our system had. And we look at the system first, which was our substation, our feeders, our laterals, all the way down to our residential neighborhoods. And then we prioritize our feeders based on the critical customers that they serve. So hospital, medical facilities, you know, they're first. Large assisted living facilities, senior centers, they're top on our list. We have emergency operations centers and police and fire, water and wastewater. These are all kind of critical facilities that we have. So the storm came and we sent our crews out to start the feeder assessment, trying to see what the extent of damage that we had. You know, did we have wires down because of trees, or have wires down because of the conductors getting together? You know, what was the nature of the problem? What's the nature of the damage? After the assessment, we begun the feeder restoration process. You know, by the end of day 1, we had over 12,000 customers picked back up. In 72 hours after the storm passed, we were at 95% restored after 72 hours. You know, we wanted to make sure that we had the churches ready on Sunday, we had the schools ready on Monday. We worked until probably Tuesday night, the end of business, where we felt that everybody that could have their power restored was back in power.
Wow, that sounds like a long process.
It's a lot of effort, a lot of work.
Yeah. In terms of damage and outages, how would you say Hurricane Milton compared to Hurricane Irma?
So Hurricane Irma happened in 2017, and it's roughly the same amount of customers that were impacted, 65% in Irma versus 68% in Hurricane Milton. But the main difference was the tree damage that we had. We had a couple days before the storm, we had a lot of rain. During the storm, we had a lot of rain. The winds came. The winds were really at the northwest quadrant of the storm, and that sat on us for a good 12 hours. So a lot of tree damage. A lot of trees came down. Trees fell down. They took out the 38 poles we talked about. The distribution transformers were damaged. 9,400 foot of primary cable plus secondary cable. So yeah, the main difference between the two storms was really the tree damage that we had. And that was pretty consistent throughout the service territory. Nobody went unscathed, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We did receive a question for you from our audience. Why did it take so long to get Sunnyside back up and running with power?
So a lot of the service territory that we have around our lakes were hit pretty hard with tree damage. And again, part of that rationale is you have kind of an unobstructed path where the winds to hit our facilities. So the trees came down. And they came down over off Lake Harris, and it was quite a bit of damage there. If you looked at our social media post that we tried to keep current during the storm, we had crews in Sunnyside every day, from day one, from clearing the roads, from clearing the debris from our facilities, all the way up to the final Tuesday. We still had crews out there. The front of the neighborhood came up first. Not as many trees that fell down. Some of the underground subdivisions kind of withstood the outage, and we brought the main feeder up. Those customers came back in power. But on the rear side, the back side, closer to Lake Harris, that's where the heavy tree damage was. So that's just a lot of work, a lot of time, replacing poles, putting the primary back up, very resource intensive. And I think the residents out there saw us there each and every day, working hard to get the lights back on.
Brad, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us about Leesburg Electric's work during and after Hurricane Milton. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Inside Leesburg. Hurricane season is nearly over, but it's never too early to get prepared. Now is a great time to check on your hurricane kit. Don't have one? Go to ready.gov for a checklist. Until next time, I'm Katie Sartoris. Get outdoors and enjoy this beautiful place we all call home.